Buenos dias. All white Christianity is satanic. When James Cone wrote these words some 50 years ago, what he was trying to say is that when Christianity has nothing to say about slavery or Jim and Jane Crow, then it has nothing to do with God or Jesus Christ. Building on James Cone's argument, I like to say that all religious traditions, regardless of faith, which has nothing to say about the oppressed of the world, is evil, or in my own terminology as a Christian, satanic. For you see, when religion ignores genocide, both of the past and what's occurring today, when religion has nothing to say about slavery in the past or human trafficking today, when religion is silent while migrants are being demonized, while the rise of neoliberalism is causing greater disparity in the world, when religions shelter terrorists, when religion supports despots, when religion ignores climate change, then these religions are satanic. All of creation vomits when religion relegates women, the queer community, the poor, the disenfranchised, to anything less than human. Because I identify as a Christian, I will speak from my own tradition, hoping that it resonates with others. The problem of Christianity is that it has been interpreted by the colonizers to justify the colonization. All enlightened European philosophy and Christian doctrine is detrimental to the world's marginalized. When the French had their slogan, Liberté, Égalité, and Fraternité, they never intended to include their colonized in Vietnam or Algiers or Haiti. For liberation and freedom was only for white Europeans, never their colonized. In the country where I presently reside, one of its founders, a slaveholder and a rapist, wrote these words: We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, when he wrote those words, neither he nor any of his fellow slaveholders included among those rights those of their slaves. So here's the question. How do we develop a religious rhetoric that excludes the colonized from the beliefs of that religion? Well, number one, we create abstract ideals of doctrines. So as long as we're talking about religion up here, it's never contextualized among the poor and the disenfranchised of the world who live here, who are flesh and blood. Or we universalize the human experience based on the social location of the colonizer, thus delegitimizing the philosophical contributions made by those colonized who were relegated to the underside of history. I would argue that the works of Descartes, Kant, Hume, and Locke share a common denominator: elevating white supremacy to a global scale. Therefore, I have to wonder, if Eurocentric philosophy and theology is beyond reform, can I continue to use it? For if I do, am I subjugating my philosophical contributions that are made by my community? One of the major obstacles in finding my own liberation is how much my mind has been colonized. I'll give you an example. When I was in my 20s, a hot young Latino man, I remember being stopped by the police and searched. And when I asked why, I was told that usually young Latinos from Miami are known to be trafficking in cocaine. And they wanted to make sure that I was not delivering cocaine to northern states. Rather than, when I walked away from that encounter, rather than being indignated by what occurred, instead what I thought to myself was, thank God the cops are doing their job and keeping us safe. You see, my mind was so colonized that I learned to see myself through the eyes of my oppressor. I have learned that I have to go to the police department to get a permit from the police department so I could protest the police department for police brutality. We have domesticated protests so that nothing changes, but we just feel good about ourselves for doing something. So my question is, do I use the tools of the colonizers to claim my liberation, or do I find a new voice? One of the first post-colonialist thinkers of the Caribbean is José Martí, who said, el vino de plátano, y si sale agrio, sigue siendo nuestro vino. I'll translate for those of you who don't yet speak Spanish. We will make our wine out of plantains, and even if it comes out sour, it is still our wine. The first step to decolonizing my mind is to learn to see with my own eyes. By rejecting Eurocentric philosophical supremacy and creating my own understanding of religion and faith using my own symbols. And even if I get it wrong, that's okay, because it's my wine. The situation for the colonized, the disenfranchised, and the poor of the world may very well seem hopeless. I sometimes find myself wrestling with what Primo Levi, the Holocaust survivor, said, there is no God, only Auschwitz. For you see, the poor of the world are so many, and their corpse throughout history stench is so powerful that it has choked all hope out of my throat. But you see, in Spanish, hope is translated as esperanza, which comes from the word esperar, which means to wait. So when I say hope, I am really saying to wait. Only I'm not quite sure what I'm waiting for. It could be good, it could be bad. Thus, for my tradition, it brings to life the words of Ecclesiastic, vanity of vanities, says the teacher, absolute futility, everything is meaningless. How do I practice my faith for the sake of liberation in the midst of the hopelessness that the vast majority of the world marginalized find themselves in? Martin Luther King once said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And while I love MLK's writings, in this point I might disagree just a bit. I sometimes wonder if the arc of the moral universe cares. And if it's going to bend towards justice, we are the ones that have to do the bending. You see, hopelessness rejects quick fixes. Now, I'm not talking as hopelessness as being despair, but rather desperation. When I talk to migrants about to cross the desert, separating Mexico from the United States, in where every 4 day, 5 of them perish, there's not despair that motivates them. It is desperation. And if we could get us to understand this desperation, when we realize that we have nothing to lose, that's when we become the most revolutionary. If neoliberalism, at least for the time being, has won, if oppression continues, if it seems hopeless, then why do I struggle? I continue to struggle not because I think I'm going to win. Probably I won't. But I continue to struggle because in the struggle I discover my own humanity and I discover my own faith. I reject trying to figure out how many angels dance on the head of a pin and other abstract thoughts. And instead, I commit myself, and I invite you to join me in committing ourselves to praxis, orthopraxis, correct praxis. It doesn't matter what you believe, but show me your belief by what you do. Gracias.